The red-haired man pinned Idia against the wall. In the dim candlelight, the two of them pressed tightly together. In a low voice, the red-haired man whispered, "Idia, I think. I can't hold myself back any longer." After a brief pause, he softly asked, "May I?" The corners of Idia's lips lifted into a faint smile. "Of course, Lord Callio." He took a delicate little bottle from his chest. "For tonight, shall we try this?" The grand estate stood quietly beneath the sunlight. Idia looked at herself in the mirror. "Countless times I thought this was all just a dream, but wasn't. This was the world of a so-called romantic fantasy novel. After being hit by a truck in my previous life, I opened my eyes again and found that I had been reincarnated as a count's daughter, Idia. I was certain I was inside a novel called Holy Plato, but that book wasn't really to my taste. I dropped it pretty quickly, so I didn't remember the plot very clearly. The only core setting I could recall was this. In this world, there is absolutely no sexual freedom. If I had read the whole book, I might have gained some useful knowledge for myself. I really should have finished it back then, but at the time, I only cared about the adult content. I thought being reborn as a noble lady would mean a comfortable, carefree life. Instead, the body I reincarnated into belonged to nothing more than a penniless background character from a ruined family, Idia. She was thrown out of the estate and with no relatives to rely on. She stood alone on a street covered in falling leaves. Lowering her head, she looked at the job notice in her hand. No matter what, if I wanted to survive, I had to work. She pulled herself together again. In my previous life, I was the product development manager at a major adult toy manufacturer, a woman who had climbed to that position through sheer effort. Although I ended up here not long after my promotion, I truly wanted to develop safe, enjoyable adult toys to enrich everyone's sex lives. Regretting things now won't help. I have to focus on what's right in front of me. Even though my family had fallen, I still had enough magic to make a living. For now, I should find a job. However, reality was far crueler than she had imagined. Idia sat on a bench in dejection. Finding work in this world was just as difficult. She hadn't received a single acceptance notice. Suddenly, a sharp scolding voice rose nearby. "You useless girl." Idia looked toward the sound and saw an older maid standing in front of a shop, loudly berating a younger maid. "You hopeless fool. It looks like I'll have to teach you a proper lesson before that wooden head of yours starts working." Idia reached out and tightly grabbed the older maid's wrist. "Do you really think violence counts as teaching?" she thought. A superior who lost control at every little thing and resorted to violence was exactly the kind of person I had sworn in my past life I would never become. Idia stared at the older maid and said, "Let go of her at once." Coming back to her senses, the older maid struggled and shouted, "Who do you think you are? How dare you criticize the way I discipline my staff? You've got some nerve." A woman dressed in a dark green gown approached and calmly said, "This young lady is absolutely right." The older maid jolted in shock, turned around, and respectfully cried, "Lady Daphne." Daphne stepped forward, looked at the maid, and said, "You are dismissed, effective immediately." The older maid answered in a panic, "Please wait. I've worked here for so many years. How can you dismiss me just like that?" Daphne's expression remained cold. "No matter how long you've worked here, my household has no need for anyone who treats subordinates with violence." She turned to Idia. "Thank you for protecting my maid." She noticed the papers scattered on the ground and bent down to pick them up. "Are these yours?" Idia replied, "That's my resume." Daphne looked at the paper in her hand. "I am Daphne, Duchess of Lancelot. Your name is Idia, correct? Are you looking for work?" Thanks to that incident, I began working at Duchess Daphne Lancelot's side, becoming her personal maid and attending to her daily life. Morning sunlight streamed into the room as Idia poured tea for Daphne and said, "Good morning, Lady Daphne." Looking weary, Daphne replied, "Good morning." Idia looked at her and said, "Your complexion seems a little pale again today." Daphne let out a soft sigh. "It's because I haven't been sleeping well lately. When my husband was still alive, this never happened." Standing beside the table, Idia asked, "So when your husband was alive, you slept soundly?" Daphne replied softly, "Yes. My husband and I were very compatible in bed. Thinking of him before sleep only makes me feel more defeated. I think I'm depressed because of a lack of a sex life." Idia froze on the spot. Daphne gave an apologetic smile. "I'm sorry. If others found out I was talking about such things, it would cause quite a scandal." Idia thought to herself, "That's right. This is a kingdom where sexual freedom is strictly forbidden. Even talking about such matters is heavily taboo." Purity is valued to such an extreme that premarital sex and even remarriage is prohibited. I'm not surprised, but ever since her husband died, Daphne has been all alone. Daphne looked at Idia and said, "In any case, please keep what I just said a secret between the two of us." Idia bowed slightly. "As you wish, Lady Daphne." Late that night, Idia sat alone at a desk. Hearing Daphne actually say the words "lack of a sex life" had certainly shocked me. But the fact that she shared something so private with me meant she truly trusted me. If that's the case, I want to repay that trust. If there's some way I can help Lady Daphne get a good night's sleep. Idia's eyes grew resolute. "I've got an idea. Maybe I can use magic to make a self-pleasure toy that women can enjoy on their own. It could be disguised as a rune decoration with a design that's cute and stylish." In her room late at night, Idia busied herself with the work. "Next, all I need to do is infuse it with my magic and set the programming so it delivers gentle pleasure." Morning sunlight fell over the grand ducal estate as Daphne approached Idia and said, "Good morning, Idia." Idia bowed slightly in return. "Good morning, Lady Daphne. You're up earlier than usual today." Daphne said, "Yesterday I used that little gift you gave me. I could hardly wait to tell you how it felt." Idia was stunned. "I only gave it to her yesterday, and she's already used it?" She cautiously asked, "How was it?" Daphne wore an intoxicated expression. "Let me tell you, it was absolutely divine. Afterward, I slept as soundly as a baby." "Thank you for making this especially for me, Idia." Smiling, Idia replied, "I'm so glad you liked it." Daphne said thoughtfully, "Although it feels different from spending the night with him, it certainly has its own unique charm." "Well, I think I praised it enough. Actually, there's something else I'd like to discuss with you." She leaned close to Idia's ear and whispered, "I'd like to give this to several friends in situations similar to mine. So, could you make a few more for me?" Idia froze in place. "What?" Sunset cloaked the magnificent royal palace. A hand held a quill pen, writing across a sheet of paper. The door opened, and a silver-haired man entered holding a letter. "I just got some very explosive news. It's practically tailor-made for you." Behind the desk, the red-haired man looked up with a cool expression. Daphne lifted her teacup and said, "You really are a genius, Idia. I never imagined you could make something so perfect." She took a sip and continued, "My friends all say the same. Thanks to you, they all spent a very pleasant night." Idia replied, "Thank you very much. It's my honor to know everyone is satisfied." She recalled how Daphne had once told her, "I want to give these to friends in the same situation as me. I wonder if you could make some more." So Idia made many more according to Daphne's request, and these items seem to have become extremely popular. Daphne continued, "By the way, it seems other noble women have also become interested in these. Since we have the opportunity, should we try selling them?" Idia froze, then said hesitantly, "I'm glad there's demand, but we can't sell them through normal channels, can we? In this country, anything regarded as damaging to purity is forbidden." Daphne said, "That's true, but if I use my connections, we could distribute them through underground channels. What do you think?" Idia asked, "Why go that far? You'd be walking a very dangerous line." Daphne said, "Idia, what you created once saved me, so I believe it can help the women of this country as well." Idia looked at Daphne and softly said, "Lady Daphne." She thought to herself, "If what I make can make women's lives happier, then I'll give it a try. However, there's one thing I'd like to ask of you." Daphne asked, "What is it?" Holding a notebook, Idia said, "Before we formally launch them, I'd like to hear feedback from the friends who have used my creations. If I can get their most honest opinions, I believe I can make even better products." Daphne thought for a moment and replied, "I understand. In that case, would you like to attend a social gathering? At that gathering, you should be able to hear their feedback." Idia hesitantly asked, "Can I really attend a social gathering?" Daphne smiled and explained, "The host is very fond of your creations. If I explain the situation, I'm sure she'll cooperate. Of course, to avoid revealing your true identity, you'll need to disguise yourself." Idia repeated, "A disguise." Standing before the mirror, she looked at her long hair, its color altered by magic. "This should do. It's my first time trying hair coloring magic, but it looks pretty successful." Daphne opened the door and entered the room. "Today, you are no longer Idia. Today, you are liberatory." Idia turned to Daphne and gave her a radiant smile. "Pleased to make your acquaintance." Looking at Idia's new hair color, Daphne admired it. What a lovely shade. Now then, let's hurry and get you dressed. I've already prepared a gown for you. Idia walked into the grand ballroom and gazed at the glittering splendor before her. This is incredible. She covered half her face with a folding fan and observed her surroundings. So this is a noble social gathering. I have to be careful. I absolutely can't make any mistakes. The nobles in the hall noticed the unfamiliar face and began whispering among themselves. Look, whose daughter is that? She's beautiful. She has excellent taste in dresses, too. Noticing all the glances directed at her, Idia grew a little uncomfortable. They keep looking this way. Were they saying, does my dress look strange? Walking ahead, Daphne soothed her. I've already arranged to take you somewhere quieter to meet everyone. They've all been looking forward to meeting you. Daphne led Idia into a lounge and said to the noble women seated there, "Good evening, everyone." The ladies who had been chatting all stopped at once and turned their eyes toward the girl behind Daphne. One of them asked quietly, "Could this be?" Smiling, Daphne introduced her. "Yes, she is the creator of those items." Idia stepped forward, lifted her skirt in greeting, and said, "My name is Liberatori. It's a pleasure to meet you all." The ladies instantly burst into delighted cheers and crowded around her. "I'm so happy to finally meet you. I've always wanted to thank you in person." Idia was a little surprised by the enthusiasm of these women. One lady said, blushing, "My husband has always been so cold. I used to be terribly dissatisfied, but thanks to your creations, I feel very fulfilled now." Another lady cupped her cheeks and added, "My skin's gotten better too." The women excitedly surrounded Idia, continuously expressing their gratitude. "Thank you so much. You're our savior." Smiling, Idia replied, "It's my honor. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts with me. I'm truly happy." One lady said regretfully, "We really wanted to send you letters of thanks, but when it comes to matters like this, we must be extremely careful. We can't leave any evidence." Another lady sighed and said, "That's true, especially when our neighboring country, Asmo, is so open about such things." Curious, Idia asked, "The neighboring country, Asmo? Are their views on sex completely different from ours?" Daphne nodded. "So different that it's hard to imagine. If our citizens ever set foot in the kingdom of Asmo, they'd probably faint from shock." Rather than stories about the neighboring country, I'd rather hear everyone's feedback on the products. One of the ladies immediately raised her hand. "I absolutely have an opinion. I want something with stronger stimulation." Carefully taking notes, Idia said, "Thank you all very much for your valuable opinions." Her heart filled with motivation. "After hearing so much useful information, I feel like I can definitely make something even better next time." Suddenly, Idia sensed something strange. She looked into a mirror and discovered that her hair color was quietly changing. The false color of her disguise was fading, revealing her original purple hair. Idia covered her hair in alarm. The magic is wearing off, faster than I expected. Noticing Idia's distress, Daphne asked in concern, "What is it?" "Flustered," Idia replied. "I am terribly sorry. Please excuse me for a moment. I suddenly feel a bit dizzy." Daphne immediately realized what was happening. The disguise was disappearing. She quickly supported Idia. "I've already prepared a carriage. Go home and rest first." Lifting her skirt, Idia hurried through the corridor. Although she had successfully left the venue, the situation was still terrible. "If someone sees my real face now, it'll all be over. I have to leave quickly." She ran down the stairs, and one of her earrings came loose in a violent motion, falling onto the cold marble floor. A white-gloved hand picked up the earring from the ground. Looking at the jewelry in his palm, a blond man quietly murmured the name Liberatori. Idia opened the carriage door, ready to climb inside, when suddenly a hand seized her wrist. Idia let out a startled cry as she turned around. A red-haired man came into view. Idia asked, "Who are you?" She was filled with fear. "What is this? Why all of a sudden? Did he discover my real identity? I can't back down now. I have to act tougher." Idia leaned forward. "What is the meaning of this?" Suddenly grabbing a woman's hand, Callio released her and replied, "My apologies. I have something I absolutely need to ask you," Callio said. "What do you want to ask?" Callio took out an object. "Did you make this?" Idia cried out inwardly. "Why does he have one of my products? I'm sure I never sold them to men. More importantly, how does he know I made it? Did he see my transformation magic wear off?" Callio stared at Idia. "Please answer me honestly." Idia sighed inwardly. "My disguise magic has already failed anyway. I know I should probably play dumb here, but when it comes to something I created with such effort, I can't lie." She answered, "Yes. I did make those. In a low voice, Callio said, I thought so. In that case, would you come with me to the kingdom of Asmo? Idia froze. The kingdom of Asmo? That neighboring country? Callio answered, yes. I am Callio Modius, crown prince of the kingdom of Asmo. Idia was stunned. The crown prince? The crown prince of the neighboring kingdom. Why are you looking for me? Callio said, there is something only you can do. If you're willing to come, I will prepare a generous reward. Idia exclaimed in surprise. What? She warned herself inwardly. Calm down. Don't be swayed. Then she said aloud, even if you suddenly say that. Callio cut her off. I need your talent. A ripple stirred in Idia's heart as she looked at him. Being acknowledged so directly makes me genuinely happy. She recalled the rumors about that country. If I remember correctly, the kingdom of Asmo is different from here. There, people have sexual freedom. If I went there, maybe I could continue making my products without fear. But then the faces of the women who had always supported her rose in her mind. She answered, I'm sorry. I have to refuse you for now. In this country, there are still people waiting for my products. I can't abandon them and go to another kingdom. Callio lowered his head and replied, I understand. It's unfortunate, but perhaps, with time, you may change your mind. When that moment comes, please use this. Idia looked at what Callio handed her. What is this? Callio fastened the bracelet onto Idia's wrist. This is a bracelet imbued with special magic. If you use it, even if we are far apart, we will be able to contact one another. It also contains several layers of strong, protective magic. It didn't seem like he had any ill intent. If someday you wish to come to my country, let me know. He looked at Idia. I will come for you at any time. Idia replied quietly, understood. Callio turned and left. Thank you very much. Watching his departing back, Idia thought to herself, what on earth does he want me to do that he's willing to go this far? Several weeks later, deep in the night, moans drifted from within the bed curtains in the royal bedchamber of the kingdom of Valentican. A woman called out, King Mill. A little more. King Mill stopped moving and sighed with some exasperation. Honestly, the daughter of the Pope, and yet so shamelessly wanton. Yulik Stacy, you really are a brazen woman. Leaning against the headboard, King Mill idly played with an exquisite earring in his hand. Yulik asked, what is that earring? King Mill replied, it belongs to a woman who attended the banquet the other day. Yulik looked at him. A woman. King Mill smiled with amusement. I'm curious what sort of expression a woman who made such vulgar merchandise would show in bed. Yulik asked, what vulgar merchandise? King Mill replied, I don't know the details myself. What I want is simply that woman's body. Smiling, Yulik said, Your Majesty becoming interested in someone other than me? That's quite rare. I'm a little curious about her name. King Mill put on his coat. Let me think. I believe it was Liberatory. I'm leaving. As he walked toward the door, he muttered, being king really is troublesome. Yulik sat alone on the bed, staring at the tightly closed door. Liberatory. Holding a letter, Idia said, these want to be added to the order as well. Looking at the order sheet, the shop owner exclaimed, another large order. Are these new products? Liberatory replied, yes. She thought to herself, the pleasure items already on sale are selling extremely well. So, I decided to start increasing production for the new series too. The shop owner said, that certainly makes us very happy, but please be careful of what's happening around you. Idia asked in confusion. What do you mean by that? The owner explained, a magic item shop that's been in business for decades naturally gathers a lot of information. Just the other day, I received this flyer. He pulled a sheet of paper from beneath the counter. Would you take a look at this? Idia accepted the flyer and looked at its contents. She gasped, what is this? Idia was trapped within a glowing magic circle while two figures dressed in black stood to the side, casting spells. The shop owner said, I'm sorry, miss. Idia demanded, why are you doing this? The owner replied, of course, for money. He gave an order to the men in black. Until preparations for the transfer are complete, lock her in the warehouse first. Idia reached out and touched the sealed door. A complex purple magic circle appeared upon it. She tried to break it, but it was useless. Muttering to herself, she said, no good. There's incredibly strong magic placed on this. As expected of the owner of a magic item shop, she crouched in the corner of the warehouse. I never expected to be betrayed by a business partner I got along with so well. I don't know who I'll be sent to, but they'll definitely question me about where the goods are. In this country, there really is no one I can trust. Suddenly, she thought of something and looked at her wrist. Callio once said, "This bracelet has special magic placed on it. As long as you wear it, we can contact each other even from far away." Looking at the faintly glowing bracelet, Idia thought, "That's right, I still have this." Sunlight shone over the magnificent palace buildings. Callio walked into the grand hall as a herald loudly announced, "His Highness Prince Callio of the Kingdom of Asmo." Looking down from above, King Mill asked, "Shouldn't King Akan have come in person today?" Callio replied, "My father is unwell, so I am attending in his place." Leaning back in his chair, King Mill sneered, "Sending some inexperienced upstart to a formal negotiation? Valenti Khan is truly looking down on us." Callio calmly said, "It is true that I am still young and cannot compare to my father. But as Crown Prince, I believe I do not fall short of him in learning. Please allow us to discuss future trade matters once more." King Mill rose to his feet and walked down the steps. "Let's leave that matter as it is for now. Don't cause me any more trouble. I am Buse." As he brushed past Callio, he coldly tossed out one last remark. "If all you have to say is such boring drivel, then go home." Callio let out a helpless sigh and left the hall, climbing into his carriage. I had heard my father mention it, but I never expected him to be this arrogant. The people of Valentikand must have it hard, being stuck with a troublesome king like that. Leaning back in a carriage seat, he suddenly sensed something strange at his wrist. He looked at the bracelet glowing faintly and murmured, "Liberatory." Idia's voice came from the bracelet. "Help me." Sitting upright at once, Callio asked, "What happened? What's going on?" Idia replied anxiously, "I think I'm being hunted. I've been imprisoned." Callio pressed, "Where are you now?" Idia said, "Probably in a shopping district on the west side of the royal capital." The man in black behind her noticed the light, pointed at her wrist, and shouted, "What is that bracelet? Smash it right now." Idia cried out, Callio shouted into the bracelet, "Wait, Liberatory, answer me." The bracelet's light went out, and the communication was completely cut off. Callio fell silent in the carriage. A retainer outside the carriage window asked, "Your Highness, shall we return directly to Asmo?" In a low voice, Callio said, "Go to the shopping district on the west side of the royal capital." The carriage stopped on a bustling street. As Callio stepped out, he noticed a sheet of paper drifting down by his feet. He picked up the wanted notice. Liberatory's portrait was printed clearly on it, with a reward of 1 million. Looking at the notice, Callio said, "So that's what this is." He sensed the fluctuations in the air. This magical aura is exactly the same as the product she made. He turned toward a building by the roadside. "I can feel the aura. It's coming from this shop." Callio pushed open the door, and the bell above it rang sharply. The shop owner came forward and asked, "Welcome. What can I help you with?" Callio advanced on him and asked, "Where's Liberatory?" The owner looked flustered. "Liberatory? I've never heard of." Around Callio's body, a huge golden magic circle appeared. Looking down at the owner, he said, "Don't play dumb. If you don't want to die, tell me where she is." "I need her." In a forest shrouded in mist, a carriage slowly came to a halt. One of the black-clad men said, "We're here." Another replied, "Let's hurry and take her out." Idia's mouth had been gagged, and her hands were bound behind her back. She looked around at the unfamiliar surroundings. "Where are they taking me? What is this place?" One of the men in black said, "Before we hand her over, why don't we have a little fun first? This one seems to make money by selling those obscene products. No matter what we do to her, she'll probably enjoy it, right?" The other man let out a chilling laugh. "I see." They looked Idia up and down. "She's not bad looking." As the two men approached, Idia screamed inwardly, Don't come near me." Suddenly, a magic circle burst forth with dazzling golden light. One of the black-clad men screamed and was blown away, crashing heavily into the bushes. The other recoiled in terror. "What is this?" This overwhelming magic. A massive golden magic circle unfolded in midair, and Callio emerged from the teleportation light. Looking coldly at the men in black, he said, "Stay away from her, you pieces of trash." Standing by the carriage, Callio said, "Come on, get in." Idia replied, "Thank you so much." When Callio took Idia's hand, he was startled. "She's trembling. This all happened so suddenly. She must have been terrified." Callio spoke soothingly. "You can relax now. It's safe here." Idia replied, "Okay." A retainer at the side asked, "Your Highness, what should we do next?" Callio looked at Idia. "I can take you home." Can you tell me your address? Idia repeated home. She fell into thought. Even if I went back now, I'm still a wanted fugitive. I'd only cause trouble for Daphne. She looked at Callio and said, in that case, I want to go somewhere. I want to go to the kingdom of Asmo. Callio, will you take me with you? She made up her mind. Even though I was reincarnated into this country, there's no reason. I have to stay here. If this country sees me as an enemy, then I'll go somewhere that needs me. After all, this is my life. Callio replied, of course, we'll go together. Idia said, thank you very much. But before that, Daphne looked at Idia and said, Idia, I thought you had already returned safely, and now you're going to the kingdom of Asmo? Idia replied, yes, Lady Daphne. Thank you so much for everything. Daphne said, no, I should be the one thanking you. I'm glad you came to say goodbye in person. I'm happy I got to see you one last time. She walked to the table. I had a feeling this day would come, so I prepared something in advance. Opening a box, she said, this is my farewell gift to you. Idia hastily waved her hands in refusal. It's far too valuable. I can't accept it. Daphne replied, thanks to the products you made, my life changed. In fact, this gift still feels too small. She placed a hand on Idia's shoulder. Do your best over there too, Idia. I believe you'll succeed. The carriage slowly departed from the estate. Idia said to Callio, I'm sorry. My luggage suddenly increased so much. Callio replied, it's all right. I understand now just how loved you are. She must be very important to you as well. Idia answered yes. Lady Daphne gave me a place to belong. I wasn't in the kingdom of Valentican for very long after my reincarnation. Even so, the sadness I feel while leaving this country is probably because Daphne and the products I made once brought joy to the noble women here. I wonder what awaits me in the kingdom of Asmo. Idia closed her eyes. As the carriage swayed, her body leaned and came to rest against Callio's shoulder. Callio froze, looking at the sleeping Idia in silence. Inside a church in the kingdom of Valentican, Yulik looked at the priest and said, Father, there are even more people gathered today than usual. The priest replied, most of the men probably came for your sake. Yulik smiled and said, then that means it's all thanks to me. In that case, as a reward, could you buy me a new dress? The priest looked at her. I just bought you one last month. Yulik retorted, that one's already out of fashion. If it isn't the newest style, His Majesty King Mill will be disappointed, and so will you. She smiled. Father, don't you want me to become queen? The priest sighed. If you put it that way, I have no choice but to buy it. Yulik cheered, wonderful. It's a promise. A maid came running over. Lady Yulik, there is something to report. Leaning close to Yulik's ear, she whispered, liberatory. Yulik's expression turned grave. What did you say? The carriage came to a stop. In a soft voice, Callio said, we've arrived. Idia jolted awake and discovered she had been leaning against Callio's shoulder. Hastily straightening up, she said, I'm so sorry. I am terribly sorry. Callio replied, it's fine. After such a long carriage ride, you must be tired. You should rest well in the castle. Idia answered, thank you very much. The grand castle looked especially imposing beneath the setting sun as Callio led Idia inside. Once inside the room, Idia fully enjoyed the delicate sweets laid out for her and felt utterly content. Lying on the spacious, luxurious bed, she thought, this feels wonderful. Then she quickly calmed down and began to have doubts. Even so, is it really okay for me to stay in such a splendid room? Come to think of it, for what reason exactly did Lord Callio bring me here? Idia suddenly sat upright. Wait, could this be one of those developments common in reincarnation novels? The emperor becomes obsessively devoted to the heroine? She shook her head. No, that can't be it. Callio said he needed my talent. There came a knock at the door. Callio asked, may I come in? Idia looked surprised. Lord Callio? Callio opened the door and entered. He had removed his ornate military formal wear and was dressed only in a white shirt. In a low voice, he called, liberatory. Idia replied, yes. Looking at her, Callio said, there's something I'd like to discuss with you. Idia wondered inwardly, what is with that awkward expression? Callio sat down on the sofa and said, I'm sorry to bring this up when you must be tired from your journey. Sitting opposite him, Idia replied, not at all. Rather, I should thank you for preparing a room for me. Thank you very much. A brief silence fell between them. Idia asked, may I ask what you want to talk to me about? Lowering his head, Callio said, I have a favor to ask of you. Idia smiled. Understand. So that's it. I've been wanting to repay you as well. So please tell me. Avoiding her gaze, Callio said, actually, I would like you to make something for me. Make some products for me. Idia looked at him in confusion. As she walked down the corridor later, she fell into thought. By products, does he mean the same kind of self-pleasure items I made back in the kingdom of Valentican? I wanted to confirm the details a little more, so I asked products. Callio hurriedly stood up as quickly as possible. Once they're done, report directly to me. Then he quickly left the room. Idia asked one of the guards, "Good morning. Is Lord Callio here?" The soldier replied, "His Highness has official business all day today. It may be difficult to see him." Idia said, "I understand." Wearing a troubled expression, she thought, "I really want to ask clearly what kind of products he wants." A silver-haired man walked over and patted Idia on the shoulder. "You look troubled, miss." Idia jumped in surprise. "Who are you?" The silver-haired man smiled and replied, "Oh my, haven't you heard of me? I'm Sin's Belliot, commander of the Night Order. I'm responsible for protecting His Highness the Prince. Though to be honest, he's so strong, he doesn't really need me." Just as Idia was about to respond, a maid walked over and interrupted. "Lord Sins, it's been a long time." Sins turned toward the maid. "Well, if it isn't Junie." Slipping an arm around Junie's waist, he said in a low voice, "Tonight, I'll make you feel even better than last time." Blushing, Junie replied, "I'm looking forward to it." Idia covered her mouth. "Is the kingdom of Asmo really this open?" Sins looked at Idia. "Why are you so surprised?" Idia said, "I had heard rumors, but compared to the kingdom of Valentican, this is like the complete opposite, especially when it comes to relations between men and women." Sin said, "Compared to His Majesty King Akun, I'm nothing." Idia asked in confusion, "His Majesty King Akun?" Sins explained, "He is the king of this country, Prince Callio's father. Every night, His Majesty Akun summons several women." Idia was utterly shocked. Every night, and several at once? As expected of a king. Then something occurred to her. Could the products Lord Callio mentioned be that sort of thing? Tools used to keep things fresh while spending time with women? Idia looked at Sins. "Lord Sins, thank you very much. Thanks to you, I finally know what I should make." As soon as she said that, she turned and ran off. Watching her go, Sins remarked, "She's like a gust of wind." Idia hurried down the corridor. "Lord Callio saved me and let me stay here. I have to make it as quickly as possible to repay him." Inside the palace of the kingdom of Valentican, Yulik strode quickly through the corridor. "What do you mean Liberatori escaped? You don't even know where she is now? What a bunch of useless fools. If that woman has disappeared, then His Majesty Mill's interest in her should fade soon enough, right?" From behind her came an authoritative voice. "Where are you going so late, Yulik?" Yulik stopped and turned toward the speaker. "Just my luck. Of all times, I had to run into the Queen Dowager now." The Queen Dowager stood at the end of the corridor, watching Yulik. Yulik bowed to her. "It has been a while, Your Majesty Queen Dowager Greta. His Majesty Mill has summoned me. We plan to read together tonight." The Queen Dowager smiled. "I see. Diligence is a good thing. However, Lady Yulik, you would do well not to stay too long." Yulik replied with a smile, "Thank you for your advice. I will keep it in mind." She bowed once again. "His Majesty Mill is waiting for me, so please excuse me." She turned and left. For the Queen Dowager, who wishes to distance herself from the church, my very existence must be irritating. But unfortunately for her, it's already too late. Your precious son is already completely captivated by me. At once, she pushed open the bedroom doors and said, "Excuse me." Mill lay on the bed and looked toward the entrance. "You're late." Yulik walked to the bedside. "Patience is the best seasoning, don't you know?" Callio stepped out of the study. A guard bowed and said, "Thank you for working so late, Your Highness." Callio replied, "Thank you. You should get some rest as well." Then he stopped and looked toward a room with its lights still on. That room is... Idia was sitting at a desk, hard at work. Hearing a knock at the door, she softly answered, "Come in." Callio opened the door and entered. "You're still awake?" Idia stood up. "Lord Callio, you've come at the perfect time. I tried making several of the products you requested." Callio said, "These look very similar to the ones you made in the kingdom of Valentican before." Uneasily, Idia asked, "I did my best to make them easy for beginners to use. Are they not to your liking?" In a low voice, Callio replied, "Before we can talk about whether I like them or not, I don't even know how these things are supposed to be used." Looking at Callio's confused expression, Idia thought, if he's never encountered toys like these before, then of course he wouldn't know how to use them. Idia stepped forward. "Then please allow me to explain the basics. When your partner does this, you respond like this, slowly. At first, just do this much. Once the mood heats up, switch to this method. That way, you'll reach climax very quickly." Callio suddenly moved closer. Idia's eyes deepened. She froze and softly murmured, "Lord Callio, Then Callio suddenly collapsed against her. Idia stood there in shock. What's going on? Could it be that Lord Callio intends to use these things with me? He shouted, "Please wait, Cario. Lord Ao is about to put into practice already. That's way too fast." Cario's whole body pitched forward. Adia was knocked onto the bed beneath him and cautiously asked, "Lord Cario? Lord Cario?" But Cario gave no response at all. Adia called out again, "Lord Cario?" while Shinsi stood by the bed. "So that's what this is, miss. This time you really overdid it." He has absolutely no resistance to this kind of thing. Adia froze in place. "That kind of thing? What is it?" Shinsi thought for a moment. "How should I put it? He's very innocent. To put it nicely, he's pure." He walked toward the door, waved his hand, and said, "Forget it. You should ask him yourself. I have a date with a cute maid tonight, so I'll be going first." The door closed, leaving only Adia and the sleeping Cario in the room. Adia kept turning over the words pure and innocent in her mind as she looked at Cario lying on the bed. In other words, he was still a virgin. Adia pushed open the bedroom door and walked in. Sitting at the bedside, she muttered to herself, "Lord Cario is still a virgin? In a country this open-minded, a prince's age has never had any experience?" Adia suddenly snapped out of it and shook her head. "That's just my prejudice. He must have his own reasons, or his own convictions. I shouldn't doubt him. Compared to building intimate relationships with other people, some prefer to live alone. Even some customers prefer to use those products by themselves." Adia made up her mind. "Anyway, when Lord Cario wakes up tomorrow, I have to go see him." Morning sunlight streamed through the window into the room. Cario pushed open the heavy door. He stepped into the grand corridor, where Adia had already been waiting. She greeted him with a smile. "Good morning, Lord Cario." Cario replied, "Good morning, Adia." She said, "I'm sorry to visit while you're still recovering, but I really wanted to apologize for what happened yesterday." Cario looked at her and said, "That isn't something you need to apologize for. If anything, I should be the one apologizing for frightening you." Adia continued, "Also, there are a few things I'd like to ask you, if you can spare a little time." A maid entered and respectfully said, "Your Highness, breakfast is ready." Cario nodded. "Thank you." Then he turned to Adia. "If you'd like, would you join me for breakfast?" Flustered, Adia started to refuse. "Oh, I couldn't possibly." Before she could finish, a loud growl came from her stomach, and the atmosphere instantly turned awkward. Lowering her head, blushing, Adia replied, "All right." The dining hall was filled with a lavish breakfast spread. Cario sat at the table, looking slightly uneasy. "I'm surprised too. I didn't expect father to be here." At the far end of the table, King Akun was elegantly cutting the food on his plate. Cario spoke up. "I heard you were busy this morning." King Akun said, "But you're my only son. We should sit together like this from time to time." Adia was unbearably tense. "I thought it would just be the two of us. I can't believe I'm suddenly facing His Majesty, the King himself." Cario continued, "I'm sorry for only introducing her now. This is..." The king cut him off. "No introduction is necessary." He looked at Adia. "She's a reckless fool from Valentik, and who makes those disgraceful tools, isn't she? You insisted she was absolutely necessary, so I reluctantly allowed her into the castle. But for a man like you, who can't even embrace a woman, to rely on such suspicious devices. How pathetic. A defective member of the royal family. That's a fitting title indeed." Cario lowered his head in silence. The king continued scolding him. "If you're the prince of the Asmo kingdom, then at the very least, you should be able to invite a woman into your bedroom." Adia spoke up. "Forgive my boldness, but what's so shameful about pursuing one's own pleasure through the use of products? Rather than getting into chaotic relationships with countless strangers, I believe Lord Cario choosing products for private use is a healthy and wise decision." Cario looked at Adia in surprise. She continued, "Your Majesty called him defective, but Lord Cario is absolutely not defective in any way. I hope you'll take back what you just said." The king stopped his knife. "Is that so?" Panic surged through Adia's heart. "I can't believe I said that without thinking. Is this what they call les majestés? I actually talked back to a king." Cario stood up. "Liberatory wait. I'd like to speak with you alone." Nervously, Adia answered yes. Cario opened the door. "Father, please excuse us. We'll take our leave." The king watched the two of them depart, a meaningful smile appearing on his face. "I thought she was merely a dull woman, but..." The two arrived in a quiet garden. Lowering her head, Adia apologized. "Lord Cario, I was too presumptuous just now." Cario couldn't help laughing. Adia looked at him in surprise. "Lord Cario?" Cario steadied himself and said, "Sorry." It's just, you're the first person who's ever dared to scold my father like that. He sat down on a bench. Don't worry. Whatever happened just now, even if father says something to you later, I'll take care of it. Adia replied, thank you very much. Kirio said, more importantly, let's continue our earlier conversation. You came so early this morning because you wanted to ask me something, didn't you? Adia sat down beside him. Yes, Lord Kirio. I don't know much about you, and yesterday, I caused you trouble as well. I realized that if I'm going to make a product for you, I need to conduct a proper interview. Kirio looked away. That was my fault too. I didn't have the courage to show you that pathetic side of myself. He looked at Adia. I think I can tell you now. Would you be willing to listen? Adia gave him a bright smile. Of course. Please tell me. In a low voice, Kirio said, thank you. It happened when I was still a child. Late that night, I couldn't sleep. I was walking down the corridor with a book in my arms when strange sounds suddenly came from father's room. Out of curiosity, I peeked through the crack in the door. My father was with a strange woman. The book in Kirio's hands fell to the floor with a dull thud. The woman in the room heard the sound and turned to look toward the door. Yet she didn't stop what she was doing. Instead, a twisted smile appeared on her face as she cried out the king's name. Kirio had been terrified out of his mind by the sight before him and turned to flee. Adia said, so that moment became your trauma? Kirio nodded. Yes, before I can feel any desire at all. That image always appears in my mind and ruins everything. Even just having those kinds of thoughts makes me physically ill. You might think I shouldn't force myself, but the Asmo Kingdom is a nation that venerates love and freedom, and I am to become its next king. There's also the matter of an heir. In my current state, I can't fulfill my duties as king. That's why I thought, perhaps I could start by looking for a breakthrough through products for private use. Adia thought to herself, so that's why he asked me. She took Kirio's hand. I will definitely make the best product for you. So please wait just a little longer. Kirio replied, then I'm counting on you. Violent knocking came from outside the door. Yulik casually opened it at once. What is it so early in the morning? The maid replied, I have an extremely important report. Yulik frowned. What could possibly be so important that you'd interrupt my time with His Majesty Neil? The maid leaned close to Yulik's ear and whispered, Liberatory. Yulik's eyes widened as he demanded loudly, what did you say? Liberatory. In the Asmo Kingdom? Hearing the name, Neil repeated thoughtfully, Liberatory. He recalled the figure he had once seen beneath the steps and the earrings scattered on the ground. A meaningful smile appeared on Neil's face. Adia said, so this toy failed too. To avoid triggering your trauma, I specifically made the one I gave you yesterday, the kind that doesn't strongly stimulate your visual senses. Kirio said, that's true. My resistance to it was much less than before. But once it starts, no matter what, my past trauma still keeps surfacing. Adia said softly, I understand. Kirio thought, even though she's worked so hard to make these for me, the only feedback I can give her is this. Smiling, Adia said, thank you for the feedback. Kirio replied, every time you have to remake it, I should be the one apologizing. Adia waved her hand. No development succeeds on the first try. As the saying goes, failure is the stepping stone to success. I'll try making another prototype. She paused, then said hesitantly, but I do have a small request. With only the materials currently in the castle, I may not be able to make the next toy. I like to go to a magic tool shop. Could you lend me a carriage? Kirio replied, of course. I also have some business to take care of at the magic tool shop, so let's go together tomorrow. Adia answered delightedly. Thank you so much. Early the next morning, a carriage stopped at the manor entrance. Kirio stood quietly by the carriage, waiting. Adia hurried over. Good morning, Lord Kirio. Kirio stared at the approaching Adia and froze for a moment. You look a little different today. Adia replied somewhat hurriedly. Since we're going out, I tried picking something I don't usually wear. Does it look strange? Kirio looked away. Not exactly. Shinsi suddenly appeared from the side. You look really cute. Adia looked at him in surprise. Lord Shinsi, you're here too? Shinsi leaned closer to Adia. I heard about it from Kirio and thought it sounded interesting, so I decided to come along. Besides, getting to see you in such a cute dress means I made the right choice. Adia replied, thank you very much. Kirio opened the carriage door. We don't have time to stand here chatting. Let's go. Adia thought, was he a little angry just now? The carriage rolled along the street. Adia looked out the window at the town. Though it still retained its basic appearance, everything looked a little worn down. Sitting across from her, Kirio said, compared to Valentican, where you stayed before, this town must look look rather disorderly to you. Adia froze for a second. Cario continued, Asmo is poor in resources, and the terrain is also extremely harsh, so that it's difficult for the country to develop. Adia recalled what the people of Valentican thought of the Asmo kingdom. It had always been seen as a backward developing nation. And the reason for that impression was the rumor that the people of Asmo spent every day indulging in debauchery. They don't work at all. Rumors like that had also been used by Valentican to justify its restrictive laws on sexual conduct. Adia gathered her thoughts. So the real issue is resources and geography. Cario replied, but if things remain as they are, then that would only be an excuse for the royal family's incompetence. Cario said, even though resources are scarce, the Asmo kingdom also has products unique to it. So right now we're working hard to strengthen the country by focusing on manufacturing through those resources and magical craftsmanship. Adia thought, Lord Cario really cares deeply about Asmo. She came back to herself. With a magic tool shop, we're going to also sell products unique to the Asmo kingdom? Cario replied, yes. There should be many things there that you wouldn't see in Valentican. Don't worry about the price. Pick whatever you like. After all, I'm the one who asked you to make the toy. The carriage stopped in front of an elegantly decorated shop. Adia walked inside and exclaimed, these materials can't be bought in Valentican. She moved among the shelves. This one and this one too. I feel like they could both be used in toys. Cario watched Adia bustling among the shelves and smiled gently. Adia picked up a bottle of potion. They even have hair dye potions. When I was in Valentican, I had to use magic to disguise myself. But now, I don't need that anymore. Cario walked up behind her. Don't you want it? You don't have to buy only materials for making toys. You can choose things you like too. Adia replied, I was just looking, suddenly remembering something. She added, come to think of it, when Lord Cario saved me that day, my disguise had already worn off. When you saved me that day, how did you know I was Liberatori? Cario replied, that time? Because I could sense on you the same magical power that those toys had. Adia looked astonished. You could see magic? I never heard of such an ability in Valentican. Could it be that everyone in the Asmo kingdom can do that? Shinsi came over and slung an arm around Cario's shoulders. Of course not. Probably only Cario can do something like that. That's because this guy possesses an enormous amount of magic. An ordinary person like me couldn't pull off a trick like that. Adia said admiringly, then Lord Cario really is special. Shinsi continued. In exchange, he also bears the corresponding pain. Cario cut him off. Shinsi, that's enough. Carrying a pile of materials, Adia walked out of the shop. I bought too much. It's so heavy, but it's all for making toys. Cario suddenly stopped walking. In a shop window, a gorgeous necklace was displayed quietly. The setting sun bathed the entire castle in golden light. Shinsi waved and said, well then, since I have dates with a few ladies again today, I'll be off first. Humming to himself with a small gift box in hand, he left. Watching Shinsi's back, Cario said, he really does seem to enjoy every day of his life. Adia looked at Cario. Lord Cario, thank you so much for today. Being able to shop so freely like this and talk with you about so many interesting things. I was really happy. Cario replied, I'll keep the carriage ready at any time from now on. If you ever want to use it, just say so. He paused, then continued. Also, he reached out, and his fingertips brushed Adia's neck and shoulder. Startled, Adia asked, Lord Cario? She looked down at her chest and found a necklace around her neck. Cario explained, wasn't your bracelet broken? This is a new charm. If anything happens again, use this to contact me. Adia answered softly, thank you. I'm honored that you specially prepared a new one for me. Cario looked at her. After all, I'm the one who brought you to this country, Liberatori. Adia thought Liberatori. Lowering her head, she said, actually, there's something I've been wanting to tell you. My real name is Adia. She lifted her head with a bright smile. But I'm sure you've already gotten used to that name. So from now on, you can keep calling me Liberatori if you want. Cario looked at Adia and fell silent for a moment. He walked past her. The wind's getting chilly. Let's go inside. Adia froze for a moment. Lord Cario. Cario turned to look back at her. Come on, Adia. Adia smiled. In the room, deep at night, moonlight spilled across the desk. Looking at Adia, Cario said, Adia, I don't want to hide my feelings anymore. I want you right now. Startled, Adia replied, that's too sudden. This kind of thing, Please wait. Adia suddenly sat bolt upright in bed, breathing hard as she looked around. Wait, was that a dream? She muttered in confusion. Covering her face with both hands, she thought, why would I dream something like that? Is it because lately I've been thinking about how to express my gratitude to Lord Cario? Or because she recalled what Cario had looked like, the gentle expression in his eyes as he gazed at her. A knock sounded at the door, and Adia said, "Come in." A maid entered. "Good morning, Lady Adia. Prince Cario has invited you to breakfast." Adia froze. Lord Cario invited me? Though I'm happy to be invited, after just having a dream like that, seeing him right now would be far too embarrassing. She said aloud, "I'm terribly sorry. Please convey my thanks to him, but I'm afraid I must decline the invitation today." The maid replied, "Understood. Then I will bring your breakfast to your room." Adia got out of bed. "Thank you. I plan to devote the whole day to work, so aside from meal times, please don't disturb me." The maid closed the door and left. "Yes, ma'am." Adia clenched her fists. Now isn't the time to worry about strange things like that. Focus on work. Sitting nearby, Shinsi watched Cario, who was bent over his desk working. Cario stopped his pen and let out a long sigh. Leaning back in his chair, Shinsi asked, "You seem distracted. Did something happen?" Holding his quill, Cario said, "Nothing in particular." Shinsi looked at him, acting like that while saying it's nothing in particular. "You're obviously lying." He toyed with the gem in his hand. "What is it? Did you argue with His Majesty King Akun again? Or is it because of that young lady?" The pen in Cario's hand stopped. "I tried inviting her to breakfast and even afternoon tea. She refused both, saying she wanted to focus on her work." Shinsi suddenly understood. "I see, so that's what's bothering you." He leaned over the desk, and then Cario looked awkward. "That's all." Shinsi sighed. "How boring. Still, this is the first time I've seen you this troubled over interpersonal relationships, so it's kind of refreshing." He stood up. "But isn't that girl's job to make things for you? If she's focusing on her work, isn't that actually a good thing?" Cario remained silent. Shinsi pressed further. "You actually took the initiative to invite a girl to eat with you. What exactly prompted you to do that? Don't tell me you've really fallen for that young lady?" Cario's face stiffened. With a wave of magic, a flash of light sent Shinsi straight out of the office. In a cold voice, Cario said, "Go home already." Shinsi landed heavily on the carpeted hallway floor with a yelp. "Ow!" Sitting there and rubbing the back of his head, he grumbled, for the crown prince, that was way too rough. Honestly, looking out the window, he spotted Adia hurrying past with her arms full of things. In the bright, sunlit garden, an exquisite white gazebo stood quietly among the flowers. Adia was carrying a tall stack of wooden boxes, walking unsteadily through the garden. "I brought too much. I can barely see the path ahead like this." A pair of hands reached out and took the top box from her. Shinsi smiled and greeted her. "Hello there, young lady." Adia replied, "Hello, Lord Shinsi," easily holding the box. Shinsi said, "You look like you're struggling. Let me help. Where are these supposed to go?" Adia said gratefully, "Thank you very much, but actually I still haven't decided where to move them. I've been working in my room, but as the materials keep increasing, it's almost too full to hold them all." Shinsi said helplessly, "That's why I warned you before that you were buying too much." Adia retorted, "But all of these are necessary." Shinsi looked at Adia and smiled faintly. "Anyway, what you need right now is a place to store these things, right?" Adia nodded. "Yes." Shinsi said, "Then I know the perfect place. Come with me, and I'll show you." The two crossed a corridor and arrived at a spacious, bright room. Sunlight poured in through enormous glass windows, filling the room. White flowers were arranged all around. Adia looked around. "Where's this?" Shinsi set down the wooden box in his hands. "This is the castle annex. Nobody uses it anymore. Even the servants hardly come here, so you can use it however you like." Adia asked in delight, "Really? Thank you so much. This helps me a lot." Looking at the spacious room, she said, "It's a little old, and there's dust everywhere. But if I clean it up, it should be fine." With a place this big, work is bound to go smoothly. It can be used not only as storage, but as a workshop too. As night fell, King Akun sat in a dim room, swirling a glass of red wine in his hand. It's the full moon. The time is about right. Have preparations for the confinement completed by tomorrow. A subordinate bowed and answered, "As you command." In the annex workshop, the room was brightly lit. Adia wiped the sweat from her brow. This area is finally done. She had changed into a light maid outfit, washed the sofa covers, wiped away the dust, and set a cute lantern on the table. Adia looked to the other side. Next is that big shelf. It's so tall and huge. Was this originally a study? She climbed up a ladder to organize the books on the top shelf. Suddenly, she stopped and let out a soft sound of surprise. This is a book from the kingdom of Valentican. Opening the pages, Adia thought. Valentican and Asmo don't differ much in spoken language, but their writing systems are completely different. Even though I'm still not that familiar with it after my reincarnation, I'm sure this is Valentican script. In the silent room, a faint sound suddenly echoed. Adia looked around warily. Who's there? She felt a surge of nervousness. Lord Shinsi said he wouldn't be coming back today because he was going to see a girl. The footsteps came closer and closer. First, I need to get down, Adia thought. She hurried down the ladder, but her foot suddenly slipped. Losing her balance, she tilted backward, only for a strong arm to catch her securely, lifting her entire body into its embrace. Still shaken, Adia slowly opened her eyes. Lord Cario. Cario looked at her. Are you hurt? Adia shook her head. Cario let out a sigh of relief. That's good. Once Adia regained her footing, she said, thank you for saving me. Cario asked, but how did you end up here? Adia replied, Lord Shinsi told me about it. He said there was a place that would be perfect for my work. Cario recalled Shinsi saying to him, let's meet tonight at our secret base. Internally, he grumbled that he had only come because of Shinsi's invitation. Then he said, this annex is where Shinsi and I used to play when we were children. It was like our secret base. Apparently, it originally belonged to my mother. Adia repeated in surprise, Lord Cario's mother? Cario nodded. Yes. He pointed to a portrait on the wall. The woman in that portrait is her. She died not long after giving birth to me, so I don't know much about her. But I heard she loved to stay in this room and read. Flustered, Adia said, I had no idea this was such a precious place. I'm terribly sorry for entering without your permission. Cario looked at her. There's no need to apologize. If anything, I'm grateful to see this abandoned place restored so beautifully. Please, feel free to use it as your own workshop. Adia asked joyfully, really? Thank you very much. I'll definitely do my best to create excellent work here. Cario smiled. I'm relieved to see you're feeling better. Adia froze. What? Cario said, because you turned down breakfast and tea, I was worried that maybe you were sick. Adia felt ashamed, so I made him worry for no reason. But I absolutely can't tell him it's all, because I had that kind of dream. Cario stepped closer and reached out to touch Adia's cheek. Your face suddenly turned very red. Are you really not feeling unwell anywhere? Adia abruptly stepped back. My body is perfectly healthy. Avoiding Cario's gaze, she stammered. The reason I refused your invitation was because my work involves product development. I just wanted to concentrate. Cario looked at her. Work, huh? I understand. That's reasonable. He turned and looked out at the bright full moon beyond the window. Adia softly called, Lord Cario. Cario said, I may not be able to see you for a while, so you don't need to rush the development. Just proceed at your own pace. He headed toward the door. Until next time, Adia watched Cario's departing figure, her heart filled with confusion. What did he mean by not being able to see me for a while? Yulik stood alone in a dim room, clutching a sheet of letter paper tightly in his hand. Written on it were the words, I'm not in the mood right now. Another time, in a low voice, Yulik said, could it be? His heart was filled with resentment. Neil is such a selfish man. Even though he became the ruler of a theocracy with the Pope's approval, he ignores the sacred scriptures and spends all day indulging in women. And now he's become infatuated with an unknown woman he's only seen once. Yulik clenched his teeth. Even if all of this was for the sake of becoming queen, even if I risked violating a taboo just to be held in his arms, he's obsessing over another woman. I will never forgive him. As long as Liberatori is alive, King Neil will never stop searching. I will drive him into a corner. I will force him to completely give up on that woman. Two assassins in black robes knelt on one knee. Lady Yulik. Yulik turned around and looked at the subordinates before him. You've come. The assassins lowered their heads. Yes, we will depart for the Asmo Kingdom tonight. Yulik's gaze turned icy. This time, make sure that woman is dealt with completely. The assassins answered firmly. Understood. We will return with the result you desire. The two prepared to leave the annex when a voice suddenly rang out. Stop. The assassins halted in fear. Your Majesty, what are your orders? Neil looked at them with a smile. That's the question I should be asking you. He approached the two assassins, his tone calm, yet carrying unquestionable pressure. You lot. Suddenly he reached out, grabbed one assassin by the throat, and lifted the person bodily into the air. It seems you're hiding some very interesting information. The other assassin pleaded, please stop, King Neil. Neil looked at him coldly. Why don't you show me the way? Take me to where Liberatori is hiding. A few days later, Adia walked through the palace corridor, looking somewhat downcast. Shinsi came from the opposite direction. Adia stopped and called out, Lord Shinsi. Smiling, Shinsi replied, Miss, what's wrong? Why so troubled? Don't tell me you've already started missing me. Adia answered helplessly, It's not that. It's just, I haven't been able to see Lord Carrio at all lately, so I tried asking around, but no one will tell me where he is. What exactly happened? Shinsi scratched his head. So you really are worried about that? But Lord Carrio specifically told me not to say too much, so it wouldn't really be appropriate for me to tell you. A deep voice came from the end of the corridor. He has the right to know. Shinsi gave a slight bow. Your Majesty, you've returned from your trip. King Akun replied, That's right. Is Carrio still imprisoned as usual? Shinsi nodded. Yes. Adia was shocked. What do you mean imprisoned? Why is he being imprisoned? King Akun said calmly, Don't make such a fuss. There's a reason he is being confined. Adia protested. No matter the reason, imprisoning someone is wrong. Please let me see for myself whether Lord Carrio is safe. King Akun smiled faintly. Very well. Then confirm the truth with your own eyes. Under guidance, Adia was led to an isolated tower deep within the palace grounds. The sight before her rooted her completely to the spot. Bare from the waist up, Carrio sat in the darkness, his body covered in horrifying wounds. Purple lightning coiled around his torso and arms like venomous snakes, constantly erupting in blinding flashes. Adia rushed to the iron bars, grasping them with both hands as she cried out, Lord Carrio. Carrio let out a scream of agony that echoed against the dark stone walls. King Akun swiftly stepped forward and unfolded a blue defensive magic circle, shielding Adia and pulling her back from the dangerous edge of the lightning. In a low voice, he warned, Step back. Now do you understand? Why I have to keep him locked up? Until this episode subsides, he absolutely cannot be let out. Adia asked how long. Does an episode like this last? King Akun said, It happens once every month. Starting on the night of the full moon, it lasts at least an entire week. Adia froze. An entire week? She looked inside the iron bars. Carrio was being tormented by violent energy. This episode has only just begun, and he's already become this weak. Is there really no way to stop any of this? King Akun replied, There is nothing to be done. This too is his fate. Adia objected. What do you mean there's nothing to be done? King Akun said, You should now fully understand Carrio's situation. Shinsi, take him away from here. Bowing his head, Shinsi answered, Yes, sir. He moved behind Adia and pushed on her shoulders, leading her away. As she struggled, Adia shouted, Please wait. Her voice scattered into the wind. This is too cruel. His own son is enduring such pain, and he hasn't even tried to help at all. Shinsi said, I believe King Akun wants to do something for him too. It's just that, other than locking him in the tower, he can't do anything. The two sat on a bench in the courtyard. Adia repeated, Can't do anything. Shinsi explained, Those episodes happen because Lord Carrio's body can't withstand the amount of magic he contains. It's like his magic loses control. Adia, recall what she had heard. Now that you mention it, I do remember hearing that Lord Carrio possesses astonishing magical power. Shinsi nodded. That's right. You could say that the very magic that should have protected him is instead harming him. A person's magical capacity is normally inherited, but Lord Carrio's magic far surpasses that of both his parents, because he was born with an excessive amount of magic. Adia looked at Shinsi, so that's why you call it fate. Shinsi said, Actually, there's one treatment method, but because that method has never once succeeded, I think His Majesty has already given up. Adia pressed him. What kind of treatment is it? Please tell me. Deep in the dungeon, Carrio lay collapsed on the cold stone floor. Lightning kept tearing through his body. This pain was almost unbearable, and it grew more severe with each passing year. These attacks had begun when he entered puberty. Looking at the unconscious Carrio, the doctor said, Prince Carrio's magical power is far too great. It has already exceeded the limit the human body can bear by a tremendous amount. That is the cause of these episodes. King Akun asked, So if he uses his magic, will that solve it? The doctor nodded. Yes, but if his magic continues to grow at this rate, that method will eventually become meaningless. King Akun asked, Then what exactly are we supposed to do? The doctor answered, The best method would be for him to unite with someone. King Akun confirmed, Unite? You mean in that sense? The doctor nodded. For a long time, it has been said that releasing the body's desires and regulating one's magical power are closely connected. Carrio gave up trying to stop the episode and instead chose simply to endure it. Lying on the bed, he let the magic rampage through his body as he curled up in pain. After I became an adult, every month I would lock myself in the top of the tower and endure the agony and torment alone. Even so, I used to have a little strength left, but now, I've almost reached my limit. Am I going to die beneath my own magic? If I die, what will become of this country? And what about the girl I brought here? What will happen to Adia? Cario closed his eyes, and his consciousness gradually blurred. In a blank white light, Cario stood alone. Is this a dream? He walked forward barefoot. With every step, his body seemed to scream in pain. But more painful than that was what his heart was suffering. Cario looked at his own chest. This hollow feeling. It's always longing for something. What is this feeling? A voice called out in the distance. Lord Cario. Cario stopped and looked into the depths of the light. Adia appeared within the light, running toward him. Lord Cario, she shouted. I'm coming to you now. Cario lay on the dungeon floor and slowly opened his eyes. Was it a dream? The iron door of the dungeon was pushed open and Adia walked in. Raising an arm in front of herself, she endured the violent lightning crashing against her body. Even though Cario had already lost consciousness, his magic was still this powerful. This is completely abnormal. His magical power is simply too strong. Even the dungeon's magical defenses are beginning to fail. But I can't run now. I have to save him. Shinsi had once told her that union was the only way to cure Lord Cario. But because he still hadn't overcome the trauma in his heart for Lord Cario, it was extremely difficult. But the meaning of union shouldn't refer only to a physical relationship. Adia pushed forward through the raging magic. Even without that, there are many ways to share love. Adia reached out and touched the wounded, scarred Cario. Lord Cario, please don't fight alone. Looking at Adia, Cario thought to himself, I understand now. I finally understand what that huge hollow in my heart really was. It was loneliness. With a groan, Cario jolted awake from sleep. He sat up abruptly in bed, filled with confusion. Is it over? That feeling just now? It felt so real, as if Adia was right beside me. Could all of it really have been just a dream? The door opened, and King Akun entered the room. You're awake. Cario looked toward him. Father. King Akun continued. It seems the episode has completely subsided. I never expected it to be suppressed in only 2 days. Cario was stunned. 2 days? Normally it lasts at least a week. Why did it end so quickly this time? King Akun sighed. It's all thanks to that woman. Time rewound to shortly before. Standing before King Akun, Adia said, I know it's dangerous, but I still want to help Lord Cario. King Akun sat by the table, silently listening as he swirled a wineglass in his hand. Lowering her head, Adia looked somewhat dejected. I've already been in the Asmo Kingdom for a month, and I still haven't managed to make the magic tool he wanted. A large part of this episode is my responsibility. King Akun replied, You're overthinking it. Cario's episode is not your fault. Give it up. Adia said urgently, Lord Shinsi already told me how to stop the episode. I can't guarantee it will work, but I may be able to do something about his rampaging magic. Please, let me into his room. King Akun looked at Adia before him and fell into a long silence. Then he continued, when he went in and held you, the rampaging magic inside your body actually calmed down. Cario sank into thought. I thought that was just a dream. So Adia really was there. She really was here. The moment he held me, I felt my body fill with light. King Akun smiled faintly. She's more interesting than I imagined. Cario said her name is Adia. Hurried footsteps sounded outside the door. Adia entered the room carrying a medicine box. She cried out in delight. Lord Cario, you're awake. Cario let out a sigh of relief. Thank goodness. You're safe. Adia replied, Of course I'm fine. I heard you woke up, so I brought some healing ointment. Let me apply it for you. Cario looked at her and said softly, Thank you. More importantly, are you all right? You were hurt. Adia waved her hand. I'm completely fine. King Akun turned and walked toward the door. It seems I should take my leave. Adia sat beside Cario and lifted his arm. All right, let's start with this arm. Cario let out a muffled groan. Adia jumped in fright. I'm sorry, did I hurt you? Cario shook his head. No, it doesn't hurt. I'm Fine. But before anything else, I heard from Father what happened yesterday. Please don't do something so reckless again. Even if it's to save me, don't put yourself in that kind of danger. Adia cut him off. The lecture can wait for now. Let's talk after your wounds have fully healed. Cario looked at the Adia in front of him, his cheeks flushing red. He replied quietly, Understood. Adia continued wrapping his bandages, her movements gentle. Later, she walked alone along the corridor in the courtyard, thinking, even though Lord Cario's condition has improved, which is a relief, that I never imagined he had been enduring such terrible pain all this time. I have to hurry and make a magical tool that will truly satisfy him. Adia stopped walking and looked at the person approaching her. It was Shinsi. She stepped up to him and bowed deeply. "Thank you so much for yesterday." Shinsi waved a hand. "I'm just glad we were able to save him in the end." He looked at Idia, his gaze falling to her hand. "The bandage on your hand looks loose. Do you need me to wrap it again for you?" Idia lowered her eyes to the bandage on her hand. "You're right. Thank you for your concern, but I can handle it myself, so it's all right." She bowed slightly. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go back and continue developing that device for Lord Cario." Shinsi watched Idia's retreating figure. "I feel like I was just rejected." In the kingdom of Valentica, Yulik hurried into the palace. "Your Majesty, do you truly intend to visit the kingdom of Asmo?" Neil was lowering his head as he packed his belongings. "Yes, I plan to set out as soon as possible." Yulik asked in confusion. "Why are you making the trip yourself? If it's about state affairs, you could just summon their king here, as usual." Neil turned his head to look at Yulik. "Stop playing dumb. You should know perfectly well why I'm going." Yulik said, "Is it because of that liberatory woman?" Neil nodded. "That's right. I heard a very interesting bit of news. She's in the kingdom of Asmo now." Yulik froze. "Why are you so obsessed with that woman?" Neil said, "I've been wondering that myself. She is certainly a charming woman, but perhaps once I have her, I'll lose interest just as I did with you. No matter whether Valentica is a theocratic nation or not, how dare the daughter of some pope try to tell me what I can and can't do? Don't you think you're overstepping?" Neil turned and walked toward the door without looking back. "Until I return, stay here and reflect on your behavior." Left alone in the vast hall, Yulik stood there in silence. He suddenly grabbed the wine glass from the table and hurled it to the floor. It shattered instantly, shards scattering everywhere. Gritting his teeth, Yulik cursed. "Damn it, unforgivable." At the Asmo Kingdom's annex, Cario walked through the courtyard. "My recovery is much faster than usual. My body even feels lighter than it did before the episode. That's all thanks to Idia. I need to apologize to her properly." He came to Idia's door and raised his bandaged hand to knock. "Idia, are you there?" There was no response from inside. Cario looked puzzled. "I heard she's been shutting herself up in the annex these past few days." He pushed open the door and called softly, "Idia." Idia was asleep, slumped over her desk. Research materials lay scattered across it. Cario stepped over to the desk and smiled gently. She must have worn herself out from overworking. Looking at Idia's hand wrapped in bandages, his heart filled with guilt. "All of these wounds are because of me." He reached out and touched the back of Idia's hand. In her sleep, Idia murmured and rubbed lightly against his palm. "So warm. It feels so nice." Cario froze in place, his face turning bright red in an instant. "This feeling, there's no mistake. I'm actually reacting." Cario stood by the desk. "This is the first time I've had a physical reaction in a place like this. What am I supposed to do?" Idia, still slumped over the desk, let out another sleepy murmur. She opened her eyes and stretched. "I fell asleep." She looked at Cario, standing beside her. "Lord Cario, how long have you been standing there?" Cario averted his gaze as he replied, "I just got here a few minutes ago." Idia stared at him. "Are you cold, perhaps? You must not have fully recovered yet." Cario replied, "It's not that." Idia stepped closer. "If your fever comes back, that would be terrible. Let me check." She reached out to touch his forehead. Cario immediately turned his head away. "I'm Fine. In any case, I was just about to return to my room and rest, so don't worry. And please, don't overwork yourself. Good night." Idia stood there blankly, watching Cario hurry away. It felt like he was hiding something just now. What on earth is going on? Morning sunlight streamed in through the tall windows. Cario sat at his desk and let out a deep sigh. "Even after returning to my bedroom last night, my body wouldn't calm down at all. I barely slept. It was my first time ever having a physical reaction just from looking at a woman. And that woman was Idia. If Idia found out that a man who doesn't even have feelings for her reacted just by looking at her, what would she think? She'd definitely find it disgusting. I really don't know how to face her now." A knock came from outside the door. Cario gathered his thoughts. "Komain." A servant entered carrying a tray. "Your Highness, there is a letter. It requires your review." Miss Liberatori wishes to send a letter to Duchess Lancelot of Valentica. "We ask that you inspect the contents and approve it." Cario asked, "You want me to read a private letter she wrote?" The servant explained, "Although it is a private letter, it is being sent from the royal palace." Cario was silent for a moment before replying, "I understand." He picked up the envelope from the tray. He opened the letter and began to read. Dear Daphne, how have you been lately? I'm sorry it took me so long to contact you. I was fortunate enough to receive a valuable opportunity to work in the Kingdom of Asmo. I now live in the royal palace, and every day is peaceful, and stable. A few days ago, I had the chance to visit the commercial district and spend a very pleasant time there. I'm not dissatisfied with my current life, but sometimes I miss the old days, the times when I made things for you and our friends. Seeing everyone so happy brought me genuine joy as well. I owe all of that to you. When the time is right, I'll write to you again. Cario finished reading the whole letter. He folded the paper and placed it back into the envelope. There's nothing wrong with this letter. Send it to Valenica. Yes, sir, the servant replied. Cario stood alone by the window, lingering over one line from the letter. Seeing everyone so happy brought me genuine joy as well. He fell into thought. Idia probably wants to share her creations with as many people as possible, and yet I've kept her by my side all this time. Perhaps it will be better to let her move more freely. Besides, it would also help us keep a little distance between us for now. A few days later, a luxurious carriage rolled along the bustling commercial street. Sitting inside, Idia looked at Cario across from her. I never thought Lord Cario would invite me out himself. These past few days, I kept feeling like he was avoiding me. Was I just imagining it? Idia said, Lord Cario, actually, I finished a new creation yesterday. She handed him an exquisite wooden box. This one feels a little different from the previous ones. It was designed to provide a subtle, gentle kind of pleasure. It uses magic to create a breeze, so it won't directly touch any sensitive areas. The stimulation is very mild. I thought that way it wouldn't feel so intimidating to use. Her fingers accidentally brushed the back of Cario's hand. Cario jolted violently, his face turning bright red at once. Idia didn't notice and continued. There's no rush for your feedback, so please wait until you've fully recovered before trying it. Cario replied in a low voice, Understood. I'll test it later. Idia looked at him, holding the box the whole time, and asked with concern, That box is rather heavy. Why don't you put it down? Cario answered, I'm fine. Holding it like this feels more comfortable. His heart pounded. Damn it, this is bad. My body is reacting again. Idia thought to herself, Lately there have been so many times when I have no idea what Lord Cario is thinking. Cario looked out the window. It seems we've arrived. The carriage stopped in front of a finely built wooden structure. Looking at the building, Idia asked, This is? Cario explained, This is a shop owned by the royal family. It's been vacant for some time, but I believe I can entrust it to you. What do you think of selling your creations here? Idia froze. You mean, I can have a shop of my own? Cario replied, Yes. I realized I shouldn't monopolize your talent just for myself. From now on, you may work freely in both the palace and this shop. Idia asked hesitantly, but can I really sell those things openly? Cario explained, The Kingdom of Asmo has no laws restricting the sale of adult goods. You're free to run your own business, though that kind of freedom is one of Asmo's advantages. Though we also can't ignore the social problems caused by a lack of awareness and knowledge. I hope you can help create an environment where our citizens can enjoy a safe and healthy sex life. I know you can do it. Warmth rose in Idia's chest. This means he trusts me enough to put an entire shop in my care. And I never imagined he would go this far for me. Idia stepped forward. Lord Cario. She threw herself into Cario's arms. Thank you so much. I'm truly so happy. Cario stiffened, his face flushing. Idia suddenly realized what she had done, immediately let go, and stepped back. I am terribly sorry. I was too rash. Cario avoided her eyes. It's getting late. Let's head back. Idia nodded. All right. Night fell, and lights flickered on across the streets. A luxurious carriage stopped in front of a building in the city. An attendant stood by the carriage door and said respectfully, Your Majesty, we've arrived. Neil stepped down from the carriage and stretched. So this is Asmo. It's my first time here. One of the attendants traveling with him asked quietly, Are you sure taking the back route was wise? The attendant said in a low voice, Wouldn't it be better to contact the Asmo royal family and request a formal reception? Neil waved a hand. No need. I didn't come here for that tedious sort of hospitality. The real fun lies elsewhere. He stared at the street ahead and muttered, Just wait, liberatory. Cario lay alone on his wide bed, his body feeling restless. Every time I touch Idia, I react like this. I never thought I would. At this rate, I'll be staring at the ceiling until morning again. He looked at the box on the table. That toy she gave me before. Maybe I should try it, just for a moment. Cario sat on the bed with the small device in his hand. Looking at the button on it, he thought, do I press here? As he pressed it, a faint current of air flowed out. Cario closed his eyes. Just as she said, there's a breeze. It's circling around the sensitive area. He suddenly opened his eyes and let out a muffled groan. That memory again. So this won't work either? A hand came to rest on Cario's shoulder. Idia appeared behind him. Cario, it's all right. Cario abruptly turned his head. Is this a hallucination? I can't be thinking of Idia while doing something like this. I need to focus on a breeze. But in his mind appeared Idia's gentle smile. This breeze, it's just like her. Cario let out a muffled groan, his whole body collapsing backward as if drained. So this is orgasm? My body feels much lighter than usual. Just by myself, just by releasing. I can feel this much relief. Even so, I've done something terrible. A week later, Idia stood on a ladder painting the shop sign. I haven't seen Cario at all lately. He must be busy. It's a shame I haven't been able to hear his feedback on that toy. Idia wiped the sweat from her brow. But for now, I need to focus on getting the shop ready. She climbed down the ladder. All done. I kept agonizing over what to name the shop. But in the end, this really is the best choice. I hope it becomes a name I can be proud of here. A voice came from beside her. Liberatory. That's the Valentican spelling. In the kingdom of Asmo, the spelling is slightly different. If you want to hide the fact that you're from Valentica, you should probably change it. Idia asked, who are you? The woman replied, my name is Lin Flam. This is my daughter, Mika. Idia asked curiously, could it be that you're from Valentica too? Lin said, I see. So that's why you were driven out of Valentica, Miss Idia. She sat on a bench. Just as you guessed, I'm from Valentica too. It shames me to admit it, but I became pregnant before marriage, so I fled to Asmo with my husband. Idia replied, I understand. In Valentica, sex before marriage is treated as a crime, right? Lin said, but I was one of the lucky ones. In Asmo, there are many women from Valentica who were abandoned by their partners. They had no choice but to flee on their own. Idia murmured, that's awful. Mika waved from a distance and called out, Mama. Lin looked at her daughter, running over. I have a lovely daughter and a warm home, so I'm happy. But sometimes I wonder, if there had been a way to prevent an unintended pregnancy, maybe fewer women would have ended up like that. Something suddenly occurred to Idia. A way to prevent unintended pregnancy. She means contraception, right? In my previous life, contraceptives were so common that I never really thought deeply about them. Maybe what people truly need right now isn't toys, but something that can reduce the various risks of sex. Lin said sorry. I suddenly brought up something so heavy. I should get going. She headed toward her daughter and called, Mika. Idia stopped her. Please wait. Would you be willing to help at my shop, Lin? Looking confused, Lin asked, where is this coming from? Idia said, I promise I'll create a product that can make your wish come true. I'll prove it to you. So, please stay by my side and give me advice. I also need someone to help with paperwork. I'll pay you a fair wage. She bent forward earnestly. Will you help me? Lin said, I'm very glad you asked me, but please let me think about it. In the sunny royal garden, Idia sat facing King Akan. Lifting her teacup, she thought he invited only me to tea. I wonder what King Akan is planning. The king elegantly sipped his tea. Idia set down her cup and said, Your Majesty, thank you for inviting me today. Akan replied, No, I'm the one who should be thanking you. Thank you, Miss Idia. You saved my son, Cario. He had been suffering because of me all this time. It took me a long while, but I felt I had to thank you as his father. Idia thought. So His Majesty knows the cause of Cario's emotional scars. King Akan continued, I don't think this tea alone is enough to repay you. Is there anything you want? Idia shook her head. I didn't do it for any reward, and there's nothing I particularly want. But there is one thing I'd like to propose to your Majesty. Having relations with an unspecified number of partners is very dangerous. Unexpected problems can arise. King Akan replied, I see. That does sound like something you would say. But I've already taken measures for that. Idia asked in surprise, There's already a solution? King Akan answered, Yes. Though at present, I may be the only one using it. He stood up. As thanks, I'll give you one. A potted plant with lush growth was carried in and placed before Idia. She froze. I never expected to receive an entire tree. King Akan picked up a pair of scissors. First, cut off a branch and extract the sap. He wound a clear, sticky resin around his fingers. Then apply it around the area and wait a moment. It will keep that shape. It doesn't harden completely, so it won't hurt a woman. Isn't it quite a useful thing? Realization dawned on Idia. I can't believe His Majesty actually took precautions like this. Maybe I misunderstood him before. She bent down to examine the potted plant. If this sap were processed with magic, it feels like it could become something like the condoms from my previous life. She lifted the heavy plant pot, but her body wobbled. A pair of strong hands firmly caught her shoulders. Idiot, turn around. Cario turned to the attendant behind him and ordered, take this flower pot to her room. The attendant replied, yes, sir. Idia looked at Cario. About that toy from before. Cario turned away. Take care. Idia stood there blankly. Is he avoiding me? The next day, Idia walked down the street, carrying a large bag of supplies. Usually they would send a carriage to pick me up, but Cario's attitude yesterday has been bothering me so much that today I chose to leave on my own. I thought we hadn't seen each other lately because he was busy, but could Cario actually be angry with me? Idia stopped walking and looked ahead in confusion. A figure was standing in front of the shop, so early in the morning. Who could that be? She stepped forward and asked. The man turned around. A black-eye mask covered the upper half of his face, and a wickedly charming smile curled at his lips. Found you, Idia asked warily. What do you want? We're still preparing to open the shop. Neil walked toward Idia. I don't care about the shop. You're the one I'm here for. He moved closer, lifting her chin with one hand. Liberatory. Idia struggled. What are you doing? Neil took the key from Idia's hand. Shall we go inside and talk? He turned to open the door. Idia replied in a panic. Wait, please don't do this. Neil grabbed Idia by the wrist and shoved her inside. Idia fell to the floor with a scream. Neil looked down at her. You're always doing vulgar things like this. Stop resisting. You like being forced, don't you? Idia's face filled with terror. I have to contact Lord Cario as quickly as possible. She grabbed the necklace at her chest and cried out loudly. Please save me. Neil reached out and snatched the necklace from her hand. He cornered Idia against the wall and bent down to ask, who were you trying to contact just now? Look at me. What a beautiful face. So enticing. Lin rushed into the room holding a dagger. Sir, get away from her, or I won't hold back. Neil turned his head. Don't get in my way, old woman. He struck Lin down in an instant. Despairing, Idia reached out. Lin. Neil seized Idia's arm. Now isn't the time to worry about that old woman. Looks like I'll have to teach you a painful lesson too. Idia shut her eyes. No, a blinding light suddenly burst through the room. Idia slowly opened her eyes. Cario was standing in the doorway, a massive magic circle revolving around him. Lord Cario, Idia cried. Neil looked at Cario. The Crown Prince of Asmo? Why is he here? Cario maintained the magic circle. If you dare harm her, I won't show mercy. Neil thought, that much magic? This is bad. I can't win. If my identity is exposed here, better retreat for now. He released a cloud of smoke and used the chance to flee. Idia began coughing in the smoke. Cario rushed forward. Idia, this smoke was made by magic. When it cleared, he looked toward the empty doorway. He escaped. More importantly, that magic. Could that have been King Neil? Idia looked at Lin. I'm sorry. This happened because you got dragged into trouble because of me. Lin shook her head. This isn't your fault. Once my leg heals, I'll come again. Cario pressed a hand to Idia's shoulder. I'm taking you back to the castle. The carriage rolled along the road with a steady rhythm. Cario sat facing Idia, and silence filled the carriage. Cario broke at first. Luckily, I was nearby at the time, so I was able to stop anything worse from happening. But why did you go to the shop alone today? If you had told me first, you could have used the carriage and servants however you liked. Idia lowered her head. I'm very sorry about that, but I felt like you've been avoiding me, Lord Cario, so I couldn't bring myself to ask you for help. Did I do something that upset you? Cario looked away. It's not that. A voice sounded from outside the carriage. We've arrived. Idia rose to her feet. Then I'll take my leave. Thank you very much. Watching Idia walk away, Cario let out a soft sigh. I've been acting strangely and only ended up making Idia worry. I need to talk to her properly. She's always done everything she can for me. But before that, there's something I want to confirm. He gave an order. Prepare to leave for the kingdom of Valenica at once. Neil returned to his palace, climbing the steps as he thought. Could Cario and Liberatory be connected? I rushed back so I wouldn't be discovered, but now it's already too late. What a nuisance. But if I was recognized, a servant entered the great hall and said, Your Majesty, Lord Cario of the Kingdom of Asmo, requests an audience. Neil started inwardly. We don't have an appointment. He looked at the servant and said, Send him away. The servant looked troubled. He said the matter is urgent and that he must see you immediately. Cario pushed open the doors and strode into the hall. Forgive the intrusion. Neil shouted, What do you think you're doing? Cario stopped walking. My apologies. Is something wrong? You seem out of breath. Neil said, Never mind that. What exactly is this about, barging in so forcefully? Cario replied, It seems a citizen of the kingdom of Valentica caused a disturbance in my country. Neil's expression changed. Cario continued, Fortunately, the situation did not worsen beyond repair. If anything like this happens again, your country will bear full responsibility. As the ruler of this nation, I hope you will remember that. Neil clenched his teeth. Understood. I'll investigate the matter. This bastard. Has he already figured out it was me? Cario walked out of the great hall. The heavy doors closed behind him. I don't understand why the ruler of a nation would set his sights on Idia, but he probably won't go near her again for a while. I need to hurry home and make time to talk to her. Night fell. Idia was busy in the study when a knock sounded at the door. Come in, she said. Cario. Dot pushed the door open and entered. Sorry to interrupt your work. Do you have a moment? Idia froze. Lord Cario. She stepped forward and asked, did something happen? Cario shook his head. Like you said before, I realized we really haven't been speaking much lately. And regarding that item you gave me before, I still haven't given you any feedback. Idia smiled. You've already tried it? Cario averted his eyes. Yes, it never really had any effect before, but this time, it worked. Idia beamed. That's wonderful. You did it, Lord Cario. Cario said, it's all thanks to you. Idia turned around. I made a new one too. If you'd like, please try this as well. Cario accepted the cloth bag. Thank you. Late that night in his bedroom, Cario sat bare-chested on the edge of the bed. From the bag, he took out an object he had never seen before. What is this? It feels completely different from the things I used before. Am I supposed to put it on directly? He tried to put it on, but the process was unexpectedly difficult. This thing is hard to secure, and the sensation is completely different from what I'm used to. He turned his head and looked at the cloth bag lying quietly on the table. I don't think I've ever seen her smile that happily before. He let out a long sigh. Maybe that thing is starting to work. I keep feeling like I want to put my hand there. At the same time, Idia was in the study organizing documents. Today I finally heard Lord Cario's feedback. Maybe it's time to tidy up a shelf and go to bed. Her eyes fell on the corner of the desk. Why is this cloth bag here? I clearly remember giving it to Lord Cario just now. She froze in place. I gave him the wrong bag. The one I handed him had the condom samples I'm currently developing. This is bad. Idia didn't spare another thought and immediately rushed toward Cario's room. If Lord Cario finds out King Akun uses those things, it might trigger his trauma. I have to get it back before he opens it. Idia knocked urgently. Lord Cario, I'm terribly sorry to bother you so late. It's Idia. She looked puzzled. Strange. The servant said he was in his room. Suddenly, a low, muffled sound came from inside the door. Idia's heart tightened. That sound just now? It sounded painful. Then a faint call came from within. Idia. Idia froze. He said my name. Something must have happened to Lord Cario. Idia banged on the door. Lord Cario, are you all right? There was no answer. Panic rising, she thought, what should I do? She tried pushing the door and found it. That wasn't locked. The door opened. Idia shoved it open and rushed inside. Lord Cario, are you all right? Her voice cut off as she stood frozen in the doorway. Cario turned to look at her. His face was unnaturally flushed, and his eyes were unfocused. Idia stared. What? Panicking, she retreated outside the room. I'm sorry for interrupting. Leaning against the wall, Idia's thoughts ran wild. I messed up. That painful sound from before was actually the sound of him panting while he was alone. If that's the case, then when he called my name just now, Idia's eyes shone. Could it be that even just imagining me in his mind, he was able to finish successfully? That means his trauma has healed. That's wonderful. The door slowly opened. Cario had put on a dark robe. Idia immediately stepped forward. Lord Cario. Cario looked awkward and stammered. About what you just saw. Idia said joyfully, that's wonderful. Lord Cario, you called my name just now, didn't you? Cario's face turned crimson. Idia said, if you were able to think of me at that moment, then I think it means your aversion to women has lessened. Cario replied stiffly, yes. Idia continued, from now on, let's work on increasing your experience interacting with other women. Women other than me. Cario looked at her silently, saying nothing. Idia, immersed in joy, thought, that's amazing. It's really amazing. She bowed to Cario. Then good night. Then she turned lightly and left. Cario watched her go, replaying her words again and again in his mind. Women other than you. He closed the door and leaned against it. Why does that make me feel so irritated? She's not wrong, but what kind of reaction was I hoping to get from Idia? Do I really have to do as she says and see whether I can accept other women? A few days later, Idia stood behind the counter arranging merchandise, but her emotions were unsettled. Yesterday, I was happy because I thought I'd found a clue to help Lord Cario overcome his trauma. But if those products are no longer needed, then perhaps my task, that will soon be over. She lowered her head, looking forlorn. If that happens, somehow, I'll feel a little lonely. She suddenly shook her head. What am I thinking? I completed the mission I was given. I should be happy. Idia clenched her fists and cheered herself up. My next goal is to make this shop a success and help it flourish. That was Lord Cario's instruction as well. And besides, opening a shop of my own was the dream I had in my previous life. I'm going to give it everything I have. Lynn approached carrying a stack of documents. Miss Idia, I've organized the papers. What do you think? Idia replied, thank you very much. After Lynn's injuries healed, she decided to stay and work there. Idia had shown her the products she was developing, and Lynn had displayed an unexpected enthusiasm. I want to become like you, Miss Idia, so that everyone can have a safe and enjoyable intimate life. I'll work hard for this shop. Idia marveled inwardly. At this point, she may care even more about the shop than I do. Lynn asked hesitantly, there's something I've been curious about. May I ask? Idia replied, of course. Please go ahead. Lynn asked carefully, that Lord Cario who came to save you that day, is he your lover? Idia froze. Lynn continued, or perhaps, is he someone you're in love with? Watching Idia's reaction, she said thoughtfully, I see, but somehow it feels like she smiled awkwardly. Never mind. Sorry for asking such a thing so suddenly. Idia frantically waved her hands. No, that's not it. She covered her face and laughed. Don't scare me like that. In the grand palace hall, King Akun sat in his high seat. Well, this is rare. You've actually come to ask me for help yourself. He looked straight at Cario. So what is it you want? Cario said, could you hold a royal ball? And I'd like you to invite as many noble ladies as possible. King Akun smiled. So you've finally taken an interest in this sort of thing. Cario replied, it's not that I'm interested. I just want to confirm whether my aversion toward other women has disappeared. King Akun repeated, other women? Since you went out of your way to emphasize other women, that means you finally found one you can tolerate. Cario answered awkwardly. That is, King Akun thought to himself, the only woman who's been around Cario lately is that girl. Smiling, he said, very well. In that case, how many balls would you like me to hold? I'd be delighted to help. The next day, Idia looked at the busy maids. Is there some event happening? King Akun appeared ahead of her. Miss Idia. Idia hurried over. I'm glad I ran into you. I was just thinking I should give this to you. She took something out and handed it to the king. This is an improved version of the tree sap you gave me the other day. To make it easier for those who need it to use, I put it into individual packaging. King Akun accepted the item Idia handed him. I see. Idia said, Your Majesty, it's thanks to you that I was able to develop it so quickly. King Akun smiled in reply. No, I should be the one thanking you. Cario asked me to hold a ball. He said it was so he could meet all kinds of women. Idia froze. King Akun continued. The reason he's changed this much is probably you. Idia asked hesitantly, Do you really think so? She lowered her eyes. Just as I thought, Cario will soon no longer need my products. This should be a good thing. So why does my chest feel so heavy? King Akun said, You should attend the ball as well. Idia blinked. The king continued, It's a good opportunity to gather product. Feedback. Idia thought for a moment, then replied, You're right. Inwardly, she made a decision. Since things have come to this, from now on, I need to devote more energy to my shop. She said aloud, I'd be happy to attend. King Akun smiled. Excellent. Since it's settled, you'll need a dress. Idia asked in confusion, A dress? Standing in the fitting room, she said, You really don't have to go this far. She thought silently, I'm not some princess. And yet the king summoned the finest tailors in the kingdom. King Akun replied, Don't worry about that. Hurry up and come out so I can see the next one. Idia changed and stepped out in the dress. How does this one look? The tailor exclaimed, This suits you beautifully as well. King Akun looked at Idia and hummed thoughtfully. I thought things between her and Cario would become interesting, so I wanted to give them a push. If the goal is to appeal to Cario, then a slightly more understated dress would be better. He looked at the tailor. I think we'll go with the first one. Idia cried out in surprise. What? She thought to herself, that one is definitely the most expensive dress here. Flustered, she said, You truly don't need to go this far. King Akun set down his wine glass. I'll also assign you a maid dedicated to your hair and skincare, so that before the ball begins, you'll be in perfect condition. He rose and started to leave. Then it's decided. Idia hurried after him, calling out, Wait! Assigning me a maid too is too much, Your Majesty. Cario stepped forward. Father, so this is where that you are. King Akun said, What is it? Has something happened? Cario said, I heard you summoned a tailor for Idia. What exactly are you planning to do with her? King Akun smiled faintly. You rushed over in such a hurry over something this small. It seems you really do care about her. Carrio objected, "That's not it." King Akun smiled and explained, "Don't worry. I have no intention of keeping him for myself, so you can rest easy." Carrio asked, "Is that so?" King Akun replied, "I'm only helping him find a companion." Carrio froze in place. "A companion?" King Akun nodded. "Yes. After all, he came all this way to our kingdom. We should at least let him enjoy himself a little outside of work." Carrio lowered his head, a sharp pain stabbing through his chest. On the day of the ball, the maids busied themselves around Adia, arranging her long hair and applying her makeup. Adia thought to herself that this was her first time attending an event like this since that gathering with Daphne. Although back then, she had gone in disguise. This was her first time attending without one, and she was truly nervous. Inside the ballroom, the lights blazed brilliantly as the guests mingled and chatted. King Akun raised his glass. "Tonight, I have invited people from all walks of life to attend. Whether royalty and nobility or commoners, please enjoy this ball to your heart's content." On the other side of the ballroom, waves of delighted cheers could be heard. Several young ladies from noble families gathered around Prince Carrio. "It's such an honor to meet you. I never imagined I'd get to see Prince Carrio in person." Carrio replied, "The honor is mine." But inwardly, he thought, "This is my first time speaking with so many noble ladies at once. For some reason, I feel a little tired." Suddenly, a commotion broke out in the hall. The guests all turned toward the entrance. "Who is that? She's so beautiful. Look at that lady." Following everyone's gaze, Carrio looked over as well. Adia had appeared in the ballroom, wearing a purple off-the-shoulder gown. Carrio stood there in a daze. Adia felt somewhat uneasy. Is this dress too eye-catching after all? It feels like everyone is staring at me. A hand reached out before her. "Beautiful lady, would you honor me with a dance?" Adia was a little startled, but after a brief pause, she placed her hand in his. Carrio stood not far away, silently watching the scene unfold.